Ask the Dean, episode 88. My favorite number, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s NASCAR number.
Oh,
Heck
Lord.
yeah. Something new you learned about me today. I am a NASCAR fan. We are with the Mapped team with Verinia Granum.
Hello, hello.
How are you? Former Assistant Dean of Prehealth Advising and STEM Advising at Hofstra University. Hanging out in New York with us live today to go help some students on their journey to medical school. How's that sound?
Mm-hmm.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds amazing. Also with Dr. Scott Wright, former retired executive director at TMD SAS and former
hello.
director of admissions at UT Southwestern. Also former dean of pre-health advising at UT Dallas.
Yep.
You've worn lots of hats in your few
this
years
one
on
among
this,
them. Yeah.
on this planet.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us from the great state of Texas.
Woohoo!
And MAPS co-founder and pre-med and MCAT extraordinaire expert, Rachel Grubbs. How are you, my friend?
I'm hanging in.
Hanging in. That is the good way to put it. Hanging in.
Yeah, right.
That is all we are doing today. And of course, I am Dr. Ryan Gray, founder of Medical School Headquarters, co-founder of Mapped. I've written lots of books. I talk a lot in lots of podcasts and in videos. And hopefully you are here because you like listening to me talk. And you're back. So we have Rachel, the artsy med, joining us, who just got into medical school. Congratulations.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah. Applause. We're here to answer your questions. So go to mapped.tv. That's our YouTube channel, and find our live video, and we'll answer your questions here.
And let me just say to Rachel, the artsy pre-med, Rachel, if you will email me offline, we'll set up a time where I can buy you a beer.
Yeah.
To congratulate you for your success.
A real one, not a virtual one.
She's in she's in school where I live, and so that's why.
Nice.
Yay. Yeah.
All right. Let's rock and roll. Zach asks, I've seen people say that about 30 semester credits of 4.0 post-bac work is sufficient for grade repair. Is 20 okay? Is grade repair okay at a community college? So Zach is like, everyone says 30. Can I do 20 if I'm also working? Scott, what do you think? We talk a lot about kind of hours, 25, 30, 40, 45 hours. Where's the line?
So, it depends a little bit on the past and the past history of the student and kind of where things stand with the particular student. So Zach, it's a little bit difficult to make a judgment based on not knowing anything about you. So that's why I think it may vary. I think that you're never going to go wrong the more you have. So the more, the better. I think 30 is one of the things I would also put on there, Zach, that you did not say in your post was that those credit hours, regardless of how many there are, need to be all sciences. No, nothing but sciences. Mm-hmm. Upper level biological sciences is what's really going to be most notable there. And I would say 20 is not going to be enough. And I also think that community college is not what you want to do. This is, you're trying to repair your coursework and at your university, you did a certain level. And now if you go as a post-bac to community college, the contention that can be easily made by the committee is that community college is easier. They only offer lower level coursework in most cases. And so that's not going to that's not going to do anything to give us satisfaction that you can perform well at a high level in the science classroom.
Yeah. So Scott, you and I differ on this, right? And you have your kind of unacceptable, acceptable, optimal kind of trajectory of situations.
Right.
And Zach may be in a situation because he's working as well that he has to work, and community college is the only thing that fits his schedule. And so the question would be, community college or nothing. Well, community college is better than nothing. It's not ideal, right?
Well, you know, I would make the contention, not to be argumentative, but
No,
I would
like
make
it. We very rarely disagree.
Yeah, I would make the contention that your point about being community college is better than nothing. I'm not sure I would agree with that.
Okay.
Because I think that it's just so easily disregarded that it may be, you know, even if you had 20 credit hours at a community college in lower level coursework at a 4.0, it could be easily disregarded by an admissions committee that this does not satisfy us in terms of what you can do at a rigorous level, whether rigor means the institution or whether rigor means the type of class that you're taking. Yeah. If you're going to, you know, all you're going to be able to get, the highest you're going to be able to get at a community college is A&P, maybe micro. Now, some community colleges have, you know, agreements with four-year institutions where they are, you know, co-offering stuff. So that will vary by school. Now, I think if it's a schedule issue, I would prefer to see online coursework. I would prefer to see you doing some online, you know, there are a variety of upper level science classes through, for example, Cal Berkeley Extension that you can get genetics through them, you can get biochem through them, and probably a variety of others. So I would prefer that you look around. If it's a schedule issue, look around at some of the reputable online resources that are available and see if you can't fill in with that as opposed to community college.
There you go.
So.
All right. Moving on.
Albert asks, good morning. I just got my MCAT score back. 382 GPA, 510. URM, California resident with average extracurricular hours. Do I need to retake? This is am I ready? What are my chances?
Right.
Vernia, what do you think?
I think, Albert, you might be focusing on the wrong thing. You say average extracurricular hours. That, to me, kind of stands out the most. A 510, you probably don't need to retake, but the average extracurricular hours is something you want to take a closer look at. I don't know what that means for you. Obviously, you want to present, you want to know that you've done your homework and you've researched this field and you know that you want to pursue this as a career, and you do that by participating in activities. So I think, on the surface, just looking at this, a 510 is not necessarily a score that I would say you'd have to retake. I would say focus more on your extracurriculars.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right.
Jared asks, just got my EMT done with EMS and found out I'd rather stick in the hospital than on a rig. Can I let it lapse? So instead of letting it lapse, go see if you can use your EMT in a hospital. So a lot of EMTs work in the emergency department. So go see if you can use it there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Question from Alex.
Alex, I haven't heard back from a med school I interviewed with back in September. Should I send an update or a letter of interest? The dreaded interest intent update. Vernia, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it can't hurt if the school accepts it. Great. The update letter, obviously update them if you have something to update them about. I think a letter of intent is appropriate, though.
Yeah. Again, if they accept one.
And I would just add to that, the letter needs to be short and sweet. No long list of all I did. I saw a letter of intent yesterday from one of my students who the letter was 2 pages long, single spaced.
Wow.
Like, no. This is not what you want.
Yeah. Short, sweet, and to the point.
Yep.
Okay.
Jacob asks, does where you go to med school correlate with where you will match for residency and practice as an attending? I'm choosing between 2 schools that I have been accepted into.
Well, congrats, Jacob.
That's awesome. Congrats. We kind of were dealing with this recently with another question, or another student asking this question recently. Rachel, why don't you chime in here about this answer?
Yeah, so it does not need to correlate in any way, right? I think sometimes people get fixated on U.S. News World Report data, which is baloney. It doesn't really have any meaning other than those people spent a lot of money marketing and gaming the system. We've talked about this before. We've done interviews with residency directors. The things that matter the most for residency are going to be your step scores and your evals from your rotations. So, if we're barring things like Caribbean and Mexico, right? If you're talking about a U.S. allopathic or osteopathic school, then it should not have any impact.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, in fact, I think residency correlates even more, and it's not even a good correlation, but it correlates a lot more than where you go to medical school, to where you might eventually practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would probably say none of it correlates. You end up where you want to go. And
it's a really low.
And you change jobs very quickly anyway.
Yeah.
I think the average job changing is like just 5 or 6 or 7 years. So
yeah.
All right.
Good problem to have, Jacob.
Yeah. So this is an interesting question from our friend Rachel.
The artsy med.
The artsy med.
Any advice for post-acceptance blues?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's been all this buildup, right?
Mm-hmm.
All this anxiety, all of this the cortisol levels just going through the veins, and then all of a sudden it's done.
Yeah.
You're
and
done.
then you're like, what do I have to worry about now? what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right?
And
it's common.
And if you're a pre-med, you want to find something to worry about.
And this is very interesting, Rachel. The artsy pre-med. This is a very interesting point that you're making, and I found that I had the exact same reaction after I finished my dissertation, and where you're totally engrossed in this for so much time. It encompasses so much of your life, your energy, your time, everything, and then boom, it's over. And you're like, what do I do now? And so it does take some time to get over that. And what I would say, number one, is for you is to, you might want to go, let me just pull something out of the air. You might want to go have a beer with like the most knowledgeable person in the entire world about
Just saying.
stuff. That might help. But no, honestly, being in all sincerity, I would say that, you're going to go through a period of time for a couple of weeks, maybe longer, maybe less, where you're just going to be all in a funk and stuff, and you're just not going to really know how to be. And it's the issue of really establishing a new normal for yourself. The normal previously had been on task, and now you're having to establish a new normal. Brenda, you probably have some real insight into this with your counseling background. And stuff.
When I saw the question, I immediately thought of that. Yeah, you've been gearing up for this for years, and now you can finally just kind of go, wow, it's done. I'm done. You're closing that book. You're starting a new one. It's a new identity, right? You were pre-med before. Now you're a med student. So just give yourself some time to process, bask in this, have a beer, tea, coffee, whatever it is. Just enjoy that you're done. You're done with that process, and now you're getting ready to start a whole new chapter or a whole new book, really.
Yeah.
So, yay.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd chime in here is it's going to be real hard work starting in July or August for you, which So take this time to enjoy the last sort of chill, several month period that you're going to have for a long time. So I know you're feeling a little down, but if you can reframe that to like, I don't have to put any pressure on myself for a while. I think that can be positive. The other thing is, and we know Rachel pretty well because she's been a partner with us, so we've worked with her on Instagram and stuff. And Rachel, when you and I were first talking about your handle, it's the Artsy Med. And you told me that you deliberately picked that as opposed to the Artsy Pre-Med, because you said, I am thinking ahead and I don't want to identify myself as pre-something. I'm trying to think ahead to med student beyond and have a handle that just identifies me as my career. So you sort of foresaw this yourself, right? So you just need to lean into that wisdom that brought you that original name identification, because you know what's coming, right? You picked it with your name. So kind of dig deep. It's in there. You already have that wisdom in yourself.
There you go. And kind of along the same vein, we have this question from Big Bad Bear.
Big Bad Bear. Starting at med school in the fall, what would you recommend doing right away to get ahead for extracurriculars when I get there? So it's probably a surprise to a lot of pre-med students that when you get to medical school, it's basically pre-med 2.0. You're in school, you're doing extracurricular activities, you're finding research opportunities, you're still volunteering, you're still shadowing, and you're still preparing for a big test in your future called Step 1, Step 2. And so it's basically all the same stuff, except there's a lot more work being done in terms of classes that you have taken. So Big Bad Bear, I would go and listen to all of my specialty stories podcast episodes, especially ones where I interview program directors, meaning residency or fellowship program directors. And the overwhelming response from them when they're looking at applications, they're looking at applicants to residency, is, do you have a strong letter from the program director at your school, assuming that the specialty that you want to go into, there's a program there at your school? If there's not, that's okay. You need to go and try to build those connections. But also, have you done research in that field? So I often say that research is the most overrated part of an application for pre-meds. It's the opposite for medical students. It's underrated. It's very important for matching for residency, especially the more competitive residencies. And often students will take a year before they apply to residency. They'll graduate medical school. They'll do a research year so that they can build up their resume and then apply for a specialty with that research under their belt. So that's what I would do, is you just start building those connections and looking for research opportunities potentially in a specialty you're interested in.
Yeah, we had a student one year at UT Southwestern who we had admitted, and he was asking this same question: what should I do to get ahead to get a leg up in med school? And this is a little bit different from what Big Bad Bear is asking, but this particular student started reading medical school textbooks, and he started depriving himself of sleep. Yeah, and we were like, no.
He was training.
Yeah, he was training himself, and I was, we all got a big kick out of it at the med school, but when we, the message that I think you need to do between acceptance and actually starting med school is exactly what Rachel just said to Rachel, the Artsy Pre-Med, which was have fun, go travel, do fun things, enjoy yourself. Don't stress out about it. You're going to have plenty of time in med school to do everything you need to do. Don't stress about it. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Pre-med school. And then I read this as, what do I do once I'm in school? And that's definitely the time to start gearing up.
Yeah.
Yep.
All righty. I have a question here about prereqs.
Aileen the Bean, would social psychology meet the psychology prerequisite? I plan on studying regular clinical psychology on my own, or would it be more ideal to take intro to psychology at my college? I don't know. Those types of super nuanced course questions, you have to go and ask and find out.
Yeah, I would just add that, take a look at the course description, right? Get more information from your school about what the content of the course is. Social psychology focuses on group behaviors, the psychology within society, whereas intro to psych, you're actually learning, how the brain works, how the brain functions, how the brain affects development, which is probably more in line with content that's on the MCAT. But you also have to have that sociology background for this, that aspect. So check with your school, check to see, check and see what the content of those courses are.
Yeah. And the intro to psychology might be a prerequisite at your school for social psychology. It may not be, but those are other things that you need to check on.
I would, if you can, take both. Can't hurt. Okay. All right. MCAT question.
Nicholas, how far apart should I space MCAT full-length exams to ensure that I effectively review each one properly? Nicholas, I have a whole podcast called the MCAT podcast that I do with Blueprint MCAT. You should check it out. We talk all about how to deal with full lengths in some specific episodes. Outside of that, Rachel Grubbs, MCAT expert. What do you think here?
Yeah. So let me get myself on camera. Yeah, the short answer is there's no one answer, right? It's going to depend on how much time you have to take tests, how much time you have to review them, when your test date is, how far you are in prep. Usually, and go check out not just the MCAT podcast, but also Blueprint's free study plan. Usually you start with a diagnostic, you do a lot of content review and passage practice, and then about halfway through your prep, you take a full length, and then the full lengths start coming in more and more rapid intervals. My kind of maximum would be no more than a test or two a week. Even if you're doing MCAT prep completely full time at the end of your testing preparation period, you're going to take a full length test and then you need to take a day or two to review it. So even if 100% of your non-rest sleep time is spent on MCAT, I would still think twice a week is max. And it's much more common to do once a week. You need to spend 1 to 2 times as long as you spent taking the test, reviewing it, looking at what you got right and wrong, updating your lessons learned journal, doing whatever review comes out of your lessons learned journal, whether that's rereading that notebook or teaching yourself concepts or digging back into something or making flashcards. The tests should be not just a measure of your score, but springboards for more and more nuanced and dialed in prep as you get closer and closer to the test date.
All right.
Jax, is it taboo to talk about job stability, pay, and opportunities as a reason to choose being a physician as opposed to other jobs in healthcare like PA, nurse, etc.? So I'll chime in here because I don't think job stability is guaranteed as a physician. I know groups of physicians being fired and being replaced with PAs and NPs. So no, I wouldn't say it's taboo. I think it's naive to talk about that. So yeah, I would stay away. And there are plenty of PAs making lots of money out in the world, more than some primary care docs. So.
Definitely.
Yep.
All right.
Jessica, does it look bad to go back and forth between being a part-time and full-time student, trying to balance work, family, clinical volunteering, eventually studying for the MCAT, etc.? So, Scott, we often talk about rigor not only in the types of classes you are taking, but also the amount of classes you are taking. How does that play into the admissions world?
Well, I think that admissions committees really do try to look at what's going on deeper into the application, and so I think if your contention is that you are trying to balance out life and work and all of this stuff, then that's going to make sense, and to admissions committees it'll make sense. I don't think it looks bad to go back and forth between part-time and full-time studying, as long as you do have some semesters where you're doing full-time work. and that the scores that you're making in those classes is generally equivalent to what you're doing when you have part-time work or part-time schooling. And so I think they're going to want to see a consistency of that, but I would not say it's going to necessarily look bad, particularly if in the course of your application, secondary application stuff, and certainly in an interview, if this kind of issue came up, that you could explain, here was my situation, and I was balancing all this stuff out.
Yep. All right. Next question.
Kirsten asks, I'm a single mother, and I know this isn't an excuse to get bad grades, but I've gotten a couple C's. Do med school admissions committees take being a parent into consideration? So this often comes up with having poor grades for one reason or another, and will medical schools understand, right? Will they understand? And sure, they'll understand, and it probably still won't be enough, because their goal is to make sure that you're academically capable. And sure, maybe it's because you're a single mother, or maybe it's because you just got C's, right? And so, yes, it may come into account when you retake some courses or do a post-bac to get that upward trend. And then you can answer the question, well, why did you struggle earlier on? Well, I was a single mother and blah, blah, blah. And they go, okay, great. Thanks for that context. And thank you for proving you're academically capable of doing well in our medical school. We have no concerns. So sometimes not fair to those single moms and single dads and other people out there who are working their butts off. But at the end of the day, and I talk about this a lot, Scott, and I don't think students really understand, medical schools will get in trouble if they are accepting students like, oh, I understand you're a single mom. I understand you had to work. I understand whatever. We'll give you a pass. Come. And then the student fails out of medical school. The medical school will get in trouble and potentially lose their accreditation if they're accepting too many students who don't finish school.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, I would say too, and, Kirsten, this is not to I don't know the right word I'm trying to think of, but what I don't want to do is talk too negatively about your situation as a single mother. But the point I want to make here is that very many students have some issue. Maybe they're a varsity athlete. Maybe they are working full time. Maybe they are caring for an elderly parent who is, disabled or whatever. Everybody has something that they could point at to say, this is why I didn't do well in school, because of this thing. And so if the medical schools went down that road for one particular group of people, they would have to do it for everybody that has some sort of issue. And almost everybody as an applicant can say, I've got an issue. Here's my issue. I'm not a single mother, but I'm this or whatever. So that's why on the med school side of things, they have to be really careful about that. In addition to what Ryan said about they have to protect their, and it's not just protecting the medical school and their accreditation, it's protecting you, because the last thing that you want to have happen is take out loans for $150,000 or $200,000 and then not finish med school. And then you end up defaulting on the loans, and that's a disaster. So
exactly,
this is all to protect you.
Yep. All right. Let's move along here.
Miguel asks, will a degree in computer science or data science help me be a better doctor or medical student?
Yeah.
Potentially. If you like it.
That was my reaction to this too.
Yeah, what do you think, Verinia?
Yeah, that was my reaction to this too. I had so many students. I've met with students in the past who all want to know what's the right pre-med major. There is no right pre-med major. What will make you a good doctor is your, passion for this field, your, empathy, your ability to, want to help and serve others. Will this help, get through medical school? Potentially, as Dr. Gray just said. But major in something that you enjoy, you're going to do better in classes that you're enjoying. Don't approach this as though I need to have this particular major to get into medical school and become a doctor.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm a huge fan, just
Mhm.
anecdotally. I'm a huge fan just because I'm a self-taught computer programmer. I didn't do any kind of computer science or computer kind of engineering in medical school or in undergrad, but I'm a self-taught programmer. I've written code. I've sold software that I've written. My brain thinks like a programmer, and so. And I think it's a very useful way for a brain to work. I mean, I'm a little biased, but so potentially it could help, because computer programming is a lot of if this, then this, and just going down algorithms and trying to connect all the dots. And so, sure, it could be very helpful. But don't do it if you don't like it.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Miriam asks, can or should I apply with no research experience? I have a good GPA, good ECs, and lots of patient care experience. The only thing metaphorically holding me back, literally, is my lack of research. I am also in my first gap year. So, literally, about 10 minutes ago, what do we say? One of the most overrated parts of a application for pre-meds is lack of research. Scott, why do I say that? And students will fight me on it, because the AACOMAS, the data they put out says 92% of students have research experience. So obviously it must be the most important thing.
Well, 100% of them breathe.
So breathing is important. Okay.
100% of them are, I mean, we could list out a variety of things. And I do think that the AACOMAS information is not, I wouldn't put any credibility in that, because I don't think, it's student reported. And so if some student said, I have research because I did a project in my biochemistry class, that's not research. That's not what they're talking about when they're talking about research. So I think I think it's suspect. And I think the answer to this question overwhelmingly, and I think we would all agree, is that, yeah, it's overrated. If you don't have any research experience, you're fine. Don't stress about that. I do think that there's also a lot of pre-med advisors out there who really say, really push this myth that, you have to do research to get into medical school. And I just don't think it's accurate.
Yeah. I think parents also kind of reinforce that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Oh, parents. Oh, parents. Yes.
All right.
Yes. Moral of the story, stop it, parents. Tristan asks, might be a dumb question, but how do I start getting into shadowing? Do I go to my local hospital and ask to speak to a physician, or do I email a physician asking to be a shadow? Rachel, what do you think?
Yeah, shadowing is unfairly hard to get. If you have no context whatsoever, then yeah, you're going to do a whole bunch of cold calling, cold emailing, short, sweet, probably emails rather than phone calls or showing up. What you could also consider is you need a lot of direct patient care experience. That's an important part of the pre-med experience. So if you can get yourself some direct patient care, volunteering, or paid work, that opportunity may lead to getting to be around some physicians who then you can say, hey, I'm volunteering Saturday, from 6 a.m. to noon, but could I hang around Saturday afternoon and watch you and do some shadowing with you? Yep. So you can kind of think of that in either direction. But yeah, unfortunately, shadowing everybody needs it. And especially right now with COVID times, it can be a little hard to get. So the other thing I'll mention is e-shadowing. You can always do virtual shadowing. I don't think it replaces in real life shadowing. We don't profess that it does, but it gives you a lot of exposure to doctors and specialties. So, and we've talked to deans and directors of admissions about e-shadowing who have said in person is best, but virtual is better than nothing, and it shows you're trying. So I think a lot of students applying now have a mix of in-person and virtual shadowing.
Yep.
Yeah, and even look into, start with your own physician if you have, a family doctor, or, that's usually the first step. And check with your school too. They might have programs. I don't know if you're currently in school, I should say, but if you are, they may have some programs set up for students there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Good idea.
e-shadowing is live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, but you have the rest of the week to watch the recording and take the quiz if you want credit for it. And even if you don't get credit for it, you can still put it on your application. Some students just want credit for it.
Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Abood asks, apply early with low MCAT score and planning to retake early August, or apply only after I get the new score back? Will schools screen out applicants if they see a low MCAT score on an application with a plan to retake? Need advice. Rachel Grubbs, MCAT expertise needed here.
Yeah, so this comes up a lot. And it's an MCAT question, but it's also just a managing your application question.
Mhm.
So when you submit your AMCAS, there's a box that you can check that says, I'm planning to retake the MCAT, and give the date. And if you do that, it's pretty well understood that most med schools aren't going to review your application. So there still could be some value in applying early, because you're getting your application verified, which does take a long time and tends to take longer the later you submit. So if you can get that application submitted in May or June, then, at least when you're taking the MCAT in August and getting scores back in September, everything's been verified. But it makes me nervous that it's February 16th today as we're live streaming this, and you're already looking at retaking in August, which is 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Retaking early August means score back in early September. That is very late in the cycle. I think even though I just said all the things I said, the people who do that tend to be doing that more often with July test dates, or even June test dates. So I guess what I wonder is, it sounds like maybe you already have the early score. Maybe you just got your January score back. Why are you not retaking sooner? And maybe you have a good reason, right? Maybe it's because you tried to do MCAT with school and now you're realizing you need to space out your prep. But for someone who knows they're not going to actually have their application fully reviewed until early September, unless everything else in your application is amazing, it just makes me wonder if you should either be changing your test date or looking at next year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Andrew asks, I graduate May 14th and spring grades are posted May 16th. When should I send my transcripts? Spring grades will not change my GPA much, and I have all of the prereqs. So there's a little nuance here between application services, right, Scott? Because TMSAS requires those spring grades, I'm pretty sure. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, no, and they don't, but TMDSAS, my understanding at this point, they changed it right after I left, but that they don't want transcripts until they ask for them.
Okay.
And so for TMDSAS, if you're applying in Texas, you don't send transcripts until they contact you and say, we want your transcripts.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's newer. I'm pretty sure I thought it was like they pretty much want those spring grades, so wait to send them. Rachel, you were shaking your head. Is that
that's what
you remember?
That's what it used to be. So I guess I, like you, had missed the update.
Yeah.
But yeah, they used to say you have to wait till spring. Because I think the challenge was that was typically true for semester people, but not necessarily quarter people with June. I mean, I would say as a general rule of thumb, either, you're not going to be able to transmit your actual application for AMCAS until May 28th or so anyway. I would wait until you get those spring grades just so you have everything. It just seems like the smarter thing to do. And it's not so much when you send your transcripts as when you request them.
Yeah.
So, they get posted on May 16th, I would request them then.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm having issues with my mic. All right. There we go. Sorry, I lost my mic for a second. Okay. There you go.
Mary asks, is short-term clinical work experience, 3 months or less, a red flag to medical schools?
Yeah.
So when was those? When were those 3 months?
Right.
Is that April, May, June of the year that you're applying? Was that 3 months, 3 years ago? Is it 3 months right at the beginning of the application submission time, because that's as soon as you could get it, and you're planning on doing it kind of throughout the application cycle? There's lots of nuance there. But Vernia, talk about a potential. Let's assume it was 3 months a year ago. What does that look like?
I'm having issues today with this mic. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
There
We
we
can hear you.
It can be because what they're looking for is consistency, right? Did you consistently try out and get out into the field and learn and serve others and help others and get your hands on a patient within reason consistently? It wasn't just like, oh, I just did it, I'm done, checked off that box. So when you did it is definitely sort of more of the red flag, like Dr. Gray was saying, if it was over a year ago. So I would say just keep trying to get more and more experience. Yeah. Okay. All right. Question from
Tanvir. I went to Temple for my post-bac, hanging out with our friend Caleb.
Yeah.
Our grades emphasized more on the undergraduate portion or a post-bac program. Like, I did mediocre in college, but I did much better in the post-bac. So I think right now may be a good time to show Mapped and what that looks like. Although I don't think our demo account has a good Rachel, I don't know, are you pulling that up?
Yeah, I am pulling it up. Yeah, because it's a communal account, I think some of the post-bac stuff's been deleted, so we need to tweak that account to show better.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find a example among one of us, so we're not outing a student.
So in Mapped, the reason I want to show Mapped is because Mapped will show what that upward trend looks like. And if it's a true post-bac that is undergraduate level courses, it's going to count towards your undergraduate GPA, hopefully improve it. That final number may not be what I say is super sexy, right? It may not be a super sexy number there, but the trend is what we're looking for. So if the post-bac is 20 or 30 or 40 credits at close to a 4.0, that will weigh into the factors to the decision heavily.
Yeah.
The medical schools see every single data point. They're able to sort and filter and graph and do whatever they want with all of those data points.
Are we pulling up Mapped or?
Sure. Yeah, I don't have a perfect example, but we'll do this one here. All right.
All right. So that's our demo account. Rachel, you want to talk through it?
Yeah, because someone want to hide that comment for me. I just can't multitask that well. We don't need to talk about each other. All right, so this isn't a perfect example because this particular demo account right now just has pre-med stuff. But if you guys look at this GPA graph, I'm going to try to zoom just a little. There we go. Okay, so blue is cumulative, orange is science, this sort of grayish one is non-science, and the bright green is semester. So if I get rid of everything but the two cumes, you can see here's a student with a 3.32 GPA, and there was a little dip there, and then it went up. Once you've got a bachelor's degree and you're in post-bac zone, your cum is just not going to move that much. That's just the reality of how the math works. But if I add back this semester line, now we're seeing a different story. So whether this is undergraduate or post-bac, because both undergraduate and post-bac go into your so-called cumulative GPA for AACOMAS, now I'm seeing here's a student who started with a 3.0, kind of curved up to 3.4-ish, had a couple rough semesters there where they were below the 3.0 line, but then the last several terms of their coursework were solidly above 3.5, right? So to the person who's asking this question, does the post-bac count more or less? It's not really more or less. Med schools do look at GPA for grad separately. That's a separate number. but your post-baccalaureate and your undergrad are typically combined into one cumulative number. Like Ryan was saying, it can be sliced and diced in a million ways, but they will sometimes, for lower GPAs, look at recent trends. So this 3.32 to me is a better example of a 3.32 than someone who was lots of A's freshman year and then dipped down in the later years when they were in upper level sciences, right? Like, I don't know exactly what happened with this student, but I think that they had a blip in their life and they probably recovered. So, that's kind of what you have to hope, is that the med schools are being, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit here to show you this detailed graph, to look at the nuance of not just what happened across the entire cum, but what happened year by year. And again, this example doesn't have post-bac, but you can see they had lower freshman and sophomore and then did much better junior and senior year. So this is the kind of data that you should be thinking about as a student. And then, the GPA calculator is free and mapped. So anybody can put this data into mapped, enter all of their academic history, and get all of these lovely charts and graphs. Which, if you've ever looked at an AACOMAS PDF, this table is taken right from them. This is exactly how they look at grades.
Yep.
Now, med schools can look at grades lots of ways, but this is one sort of basic way that pretty much everyone looks at them, is not just the cumulative, but the data by class standing.
Yep. All right.
Go sign up for free mapped accounts. You get a trial for 30 days of all of the whiz-bang mapped features, including mapped advising chat, where you can chat with one of us through mapped after you enter in all of your information, so that we can actually help you. If you want to continue to use mapped to track your GPA, and in the future, we're adding some more stuff actually to the free tier soon. But right now, you can continue to track your GPA, add courses through your undergraduate, graduate, whatever studies, so that you understand and can make educated decisions on when you're ready to apply, or if you need more coursework, etc.
And you get to chat with us.
Yeah.
Woohoo.
We do have a small percentage of persistent people who just create a free account and try to just chat. Sometimes we can help you, but the idea is enter your coursework and activities so we can actually see it.
Yeah.
Spend half an hour investing in the application so that we can better serve you.
All right.
Ruba asks, how many times can you take the MCAT before the admission committees start questioning your application? 8 times, and they're going to question, how the heck did you take it 8 times?
Right.
Because you can only take it 7. Yeah. I mean, Ruba, we talk about this a bunch. You go from a 485 to a 487 to a 491 to a 495. And finally get a 515. Like, that 515 is going to stand out, and you'll likely be okay.
Yeah. The flip side of this, Rupa, is if you're thinking about this the way you thought about SAT and ACT, don't. Right? Yeah. There's not score choice. I mean, I personally have never liked people who take the SAT for practice either. I mean, I've been in test prep for 20 years for all the exams. MCAT ideally is one and done. Like Ryan said, we've seen people do 2, 3, 4+ times and still get in. So it's not the end of the world, but you should take the MCAT when your practice tests that you've taken under timed conditions are consistently in your goal range. So not one time I got my 512, but I'm looking at the last 4 or 5 tests I took about once a week for the last month, and they're all around my goal range. And I've been taking them in one sitting at a library or a Starbucks. So I've got my shoes on, I've got my headphones on. It feels like a real test. I'm doing exact timing, exact breaks. I'm simulating the real exam as much as possible. And these are the scores I'm getting. Then you're ready. And if you haven't been doing those things, then it's not time to take it. Don't go put an official on your record. Like, what the test center is like. It's not that different. It's a bunch of people taking the MCAT and then a bunch of people taking the Praxis, typing on keyboards. So just ignore them because they're not taking the same test as you, right? Like, there's nothing magical that happens in that room.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Georgie asks, can I list my paramedic class as an experience itself? The class was unique because of the exposure it gave me to various clinical hospital rotations and integrating in team-based learning and so on. So this comes up a bunch, and my general response, and I'm interested to hear yours, Scott, is the class itself is like whatever, right? You became a paramedic. It's what did you do with that license, that certificate, that training? That's what matters. Now, is there something potentially maybe that's special that you want to put on there? Sure. But a lot of students want to put like the trainings as separate experiences. And to me, that's a waste of space that could go towards a hobby or something else that you're cutting out. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I wonder, Georgie, when you say the class was unique, number one, what do you mean by unique? Do you mean unique among paramedic classes? And if you mean that, how do you know that? If there's a class, if you're in California and there's a class in New York, have you researched all paramedic classes around the country and you know that yours is completely unique? I just don't think that, I think they're all basically about the same. They all give you various clinical hospital rotations. They all give you, exactly what you're talking about. And so I don't think it's going to come across to the admissions committee as unique. And so I agree with Ryan that I don't think it probably, you want to waste too many of your 15 slots for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this does come up a lot. And I always wonder, does it seem unique? Like, is that Georgie's perception because it's the first time he got hands-on learning and doesn't realize that that's actually the norm in med ed? But yeah, like you're a student. Pre-meds usually are students who like being students, and you thought that was a cool class. That's great. But being a student is not future physician activity. And not that every activity has to be related to pre-med, but putting down something that says I took a cool class, like that's just not very powerful.
Yeah.
Okay. Question about personal statements.
Personal statements, my favorite.
Yeah.
Whole book on it. Mary, is there such thing as a quote chronological personal statement, starting from seed for medicine and branching off to the experiences that confirmed my interests? Yeah, that's one way of writing it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Doesn't have to go in order, but that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Sorry, I couldn't even.
Is my pronunciation okay there? Is getting clinical experience during MCAT prep too late? Would a nursing home count as medical clinical experience? Welcome to Is It Clinical? So,
and am I too late?
Verinia, let's start with the clinical one. Nursing home, is it clinical?
Depends on what you're doing.
What are you doing? Right?
What are you doing? Are you working with the patients, the residents? Are you just at the front desk? It depends on what you're doing.
That is what it's all about.
Yep.
So could be, maybe.
Yeah.
Clinical experience during MCAT prep. Are you prepping for the MCAT 3 years before you're applying to medical school? Then no, probably not too late. Are you prepping for the MCAT after you apply to medical school? Then it might be too late. Obviously, we're in COVID times, so lots of things have shifted and timetables have changed. Get clinical experience as soon as you can, as consistently as you can. That's the answer.
Yep.
That's right. Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Here we go.
Niat asks, is citizenship or proof of permanent residency, aka green card, a requirement for medical school? No, there are lots of medical schools that accept international students. So you just got to do some research and find out.
Now, it may affect whether or not you're considered a resident of the state. If it's a state medical school, that's going to have an impact. So, there are a variety of issues here related to citizenship or green card status. So, this is where you really have to investigate each of the schools that you're interested in applying to see what are their requirements. Do they accept international students? Some schools do not. And so, you have to just kind of really dive down deep into the schools you're interested in.
Yeah. All right. I think we have time for one more.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Nicholas asks, why does the AACOMAS application open and also allow you to submit on May 1st? Should I just wait for June to send that application, or is that too late for that program? Why do they do that? Because they want to. Should you just wait to June? You can. Don't rush an application.
Right.
We often talk about the DO application timeline being a little bit shifted behind the other application services. So there's less of a rush, and their verification timing is significantly faster than AACOMAS. So it wouldn't be a problem. But don't rush. I talked to our friend Enrique, who's at TMDSAS, and Scott, you used to run TMDSAS, and I've heard horror stories of students opening their TMDSAS application and submitting it by mistake without a personal statement and other stuff, or like a placeholder, like put personal statement here. And apparently you guys are like, too bad, so sad. Sorry, like we're not gonna do anything.
I've seen it a lot of times before where the placeholder was come back and do this later or whatever. And they hit submit, and sometimes it's not accidental. Sometimes they mean to hit submit and they just forgot that they had not included that. And once it's done, it's done. And I would be really surprised if AACOMAS and AACOMAS are not the same way, where once you submit, there's certain things that you can make alterations to, but there's a lot of it that, proofread your application. Absolutely.
There it is.
Absolutely.
Better send it a day or two later. Don't send it at 4 a.m. when you just finished entering everything. Go nap, come back to it.
Take another look at it.
I want to throw this one up just real quick. From Devonte. I'm always late. No, you're okay. You're okay. Is there any help for an aspiring physician scientist? Go find SSG. Let me post it here. ssg.2.mdphd on Instagram. That's our friend Adrienne. She's amazing. We love her. She is a physician scientist. She's in her PhD years. So go follow her and she'll help you out as much as possible.
She's awesome. She's a superstar.
Awesome.
Yep.
All right.
Cool.
That is Acidine episode 88. Again, my favorite number because of Dale Earnhardt Jr. NASCAR rules. It's NASCAR season. If you guys didn't know, it's NASCAR season. I appreciate all of you coming and hanging out with us today and every week, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, or catch my kind of solo IG live Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern, where I sit in my little beanbag chair over in the corner and answer your questions.
So Ryan, let me just ask you before we log off.
Yeah.
So in other words, you like to sit in the stands, sweat your guts out, and watch things go round and round.
And it's like 800 degrees.
Yes.
Those cars go very fast.
They do.
Yes.
Dr. Wright, I'm surprised at you. Don't yuck his yum.
Especially being from Texas.
By the way, I literally yucked Ryan's yum because based on the food he was eating right before. So also, shame on me.
Okay. I'll take it. I got thick skin. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.